This is section 6.3. We're going to prove that triangles are similar by angle. So if you remember back when we were looking at congruent triangles, the first thing we had to do when we showed that two triangles were congruent, we showed that 6 pairs of corresponding parts matched. Then we realized there were shortcuts. Well, same thing with similarity. You don't need 6 things for triangles or 8 things for quadrilaterals to show that figures are similar. If you're going to show the triangles are similar, there are shortcuts, and that's what we're going to look at in this section. So the first shortcut is postulate 22. It's called angle. It's a similarity postulate. If 2 angles of one triangle are congruent to 2 angles of another triangle, then the 2 triangles are similar. So notice how these are definitely not the same size and shape. This one's a little bit bigger than this one. But if we have 2 pairs of congruent angles, then those 2 triangles are guaranteed to be similar to each other. You don't need to check the side lengths at all. Here's an example. Let's use angle. Determine whether the angles are similar. If they are, write a similarity statement. Explain your reasoning. We have a pair of congruent right angles. So that's an A. Now, these angles don't match. So we don't have the second pair of congruent angles. We don't have a second A. Unless you come over here and realize, remember, these 2 acute angles need to be complementary. So if that's 26, this is 64, because together those 2 acute angles need to add up to 90, and they do. Now, likewise over here, you don't have to do the same math again. This angle is going to be 26 degrees. Do you have 2 pairs of congruent angles? Yeah, you definitely do. This 64 and this 64 match. You got 2 pairs of congruent angles. Furthermore, remember the third angles theorem. You actually have 3 pairs of congruent angles, but we don't need to call it angle. We're going to call it just angle because you only need 2 pairs of congruent angles. We know the third pair comes for free. These are similar triangles then. So explain your reasoning. Angle. That's all you need to really say. Similarity statement would be triangle CDE is similar to triangle. What goes with angle C? Angle K does. What does angle D go with? Angle G. What does angle E go with? Angle H. That's your similarity statement. These triangles are similar by angle. Why are the 2 triangles similar by angle? So they're telling you that all of these are similar. You got to remember how to find congruent angles in a diagram. If we're going to be using angle, all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of situations where you're going to get congruent angles that maybe you don't remember. So that's why we're going over these. Clearly, there's a pair of congruent angles. Now, if these angles are congruent, these are corresponding angles. Doesn't that make these lines parallel? And if these lines are parallel, then these pairs of corresponding angles, they're congruent too. Even though you don't know what they are, they must be the same. These congruent angles prove that the lines are parallel. Parallel lines tell you that corresponding angles are congruent. So there you go. That's 2 pairs of congruent angles. Now, here's the other thing. Look at this angle A up here. Isn't this angle A on both triangles, since this little triangle is inside the big one? So that's a shared angle, the reflexive property. So you have 3 pairs of congruent angles there. This one, we just talked about parallel lines. Well, if we have parallel lines, then your congruent alternate interior angles are in those spots and in those spots. When you see parallel lines, you get congruent angles. Also, don't forget about vertical angles. This one, are these similar by angle? Well, these are not congruent angles, and neither are these, and neither are these, until you realize each triangle is equilateral. If you have 2 equilateral triangles, they don't have to be congruent, but They definitely have to be similar because all of the angles are 60 degrees. There's no other measure for those angles to be. So all of these are 60. So you definitely got two pairs of congruent angles. You got all three. Next one. There's two little triangles here and a bigger triangle there. There's three triangles here. Let's look at this little right triangle. That's 90, that's 32. This needs to be 58. If this angle is 90 and that's a straight angle, then this angle is 90 as well. You don't have to do the same math again. If that's 58, that's 32. And if you wanted to, 58 and 32, that makes a right angle as well. Look at all of the triangles, not just two of them. Look at all three of them. We'll start with the little one. Here's your angles. 32, 58, 90. Look at your medium-sized triangle. 32, 58, 90. Look at your big right triangle. 32, 58, 90. All of them have that angle measure. We're going to look at indirect measurement in our next video.